and welcome to Once Upon a Time. We know that this is your favorite library show where you get read stories to. I'm Catherine Poulter, and here's
Becca Hyde.
And we have some really great stories for you today. I chose some of my old favorites. And first of all is Tomie dePaola's Stregonona. This was written 43 years ago, but it's as fresh and bright as if it were just written this year. So here we go, Stregonona, an original tale written and illustrated by Tomie dePaola. In a town in Calabria a long time ago, there lived an old lady everyone called Stregonona, which means Grandma Witch. Although all the people in town talked about her in whispers, they all went to see her if they had any troubles. Even the priest and the sisters of the convent went because Stregonona did have a magic touch. She could cure a headache with oil and water and a hairpin. She made special potions for the girls who wanted husbands. And she was very good at getting rid of warts. But Stregonona was getting old, and she needed someone to help her keep her little house and garden, and so she put up a sign in the town square. And Big Anthony, who didn't pay attention, went to see her. "Anthony," said Stregonona, "you must sweep the house and wash the dishes. You must weed the garden and pick the vegetables. You must feed the goat and milk her. And you must fetch the water. For this I will give you 3 coins and a place to sleep and food to eat." "Oh, grazie," said Big Anthony. "The one thing you must never do," said Stregonona, "is touch the pasta pot. It is very valuable, and I don't let anyone touch it." "Oh, see, yes, yes," said Big Anthony. And so the days went by. Big Anthony did his work, and Stregonona met with the people who came to see her for headaches and husbands and warts. Big Anthony had a nice bed to sleep in, next to the goat shed, and he had food to eat. One evening, when Big Anthony was milking the goat, he heard Stregonona singing. Peeking in the window, he saw Stregonona standing over the pasta pot. She sang, "Bubble, bubble, pasta pot, boil me some pasta nice and hot. I'm hungry and it's time to sup. Boil enough pasta to fill me up." And the pasta pot bubbled and boiled and was suddenly filled with steaming hot pasta. Then Stregonona sang, "Enough, enough, my pasta pot. I have my pasta nice and hot. So simmer down my pot of clay until I'm hungry another day." "How wonderful," said Big Anthony. "Ha! That's a magic pot for sure." And Stregonona called Big Anthony in for supper, but too bad for Big Anthony, because he didn't get to see Stregonona blow 3 kisses to the magic pasta pot. And this is what happened. The next day, when Big Anthony went to the town square to fetch the water, he told everyone about the magic pasta pot. And naturally, everyone laughed at him because it sounded so silly. A pot that cooked all by itself. "You'd better go and confess to the priest, Big Anthony," they said. "Such a lie." And Big Anthony was angry, and that wasn't a good thing to be. "I'll show them," he said to himself. "Someday I will get the pasta pot and make it cook, and then they'll be sorry." That day came sooner than even Big Anthony would have believed. Because 2 days later, Stregonona said to Big Anthony, "Anthony, I must go over the mountains to the next town to see my friend Strega Amelia. Sweep the house and weed the garden, feed the goat and milk her, and for your lunch there are some bread and cheese in the cupboard. And remember, don't touch the pasta pot." "Oh, yes, yes, yes," Stregonona said Big Anthony, but inside he was thinking, "Ha, my chance has come." As soon as Stregonona was out of sight, Big Anthony went inside, pulled the pasta pot off the shelf and put it on the floor. "Now let's see if I can remember the words," said Big Anthony. And Big Anthony sang, Bubble, bubble, pasta pot, boil me some pasta nice and hot. I'm hungry and it's time to sup. Boil enough pasta to fill me up. And sure enough, the pot bubbled and boiled and began to fill up with pasta. "Aha!" said Big Anthony, and he ran to the town square, jumped on the fountain and shouted, "Everyone get forks and plates and platters and bowls, pasta for all at Strega-Nona's house. Big Anthony has made the magic pasta pot work." Of course, everyone laughed, but ran home to get forks and plates and platters and bowls, and sure enough, when they got to Strega-Nona's, the pasta pot was so full it was beginning to overflow. Big Anthony was a hero. He scooped out pasta and filled the plates and platters and bowls. There was more than enough for all the townspeople, including the priest and the sisters from the convent. And some people came back for 2 and 3 helpings, but the pot was never empty. When all had had their fill, Big Anthony sang, "Enough, enough, my pasta pot, I have my pasta nice and hot, so simmer down my pot of clay until I'm hungry another day." But alas, he did not blow the 3 kisses. He went outside, and to the applause of the crowd, Big Anthony took a bow. He was so busy listening to compliments from everyone that he didn't notice the pasta pot was still bubbling and boiling until a sister from the convent said, "Oh, Big Anthony, look!" And pasta was pouring out of the pot all over the floor of Strega-Nona's house, and it was coming out the door. Big Anthony rushed in and shouted the magic words again, but the pot kept bubbling. He took the pot off the floor, but the pasta kept pouring off from it. Big Anthony grabbed a cover and put it on the pot and sat on it, but the pasta raised the cover and Big Anthony as well, and spilled on the floor of Strega-Nona's house. "Stop!" yelled Big Anthony, but the pasta did not stop. And if someone hadn't grabbed poor Big Anthony, the pasta would have covered him up. The pasta had all but filled the little house. Out of the windows and through the doors came the pasta, and the pot kept right on bubbling. The townspeople began to worry. "Do something, Big Anthony," they shouted. Big Anthony sang the magic song again, but without the 3 kisses it did no good. By this time the pasta was on its way down the road, and all the people were running to keep ahead of it. "We must protect our town from the pasta," shouted the mayor. "Get mattresses, tables, doors, anything to make a barricade." But even that didn't work. The pot kept bubbling and the pasta kept coming. "We are lost," said the people, and the priest and the sisters of the convent began praying. "The pasta will cover our town," they cried. And it certainly would have, had Strega-Nona not come down the road, home from her visit. She didn't have to look twice to know what had happened. She sang the magic song and blew the 3 kisses, and with a sputter, the pot stopped boiling, and the pasta came to a halt. "Oh, grazie, thank you, Strega-Nona," the people cried. But then they turned on poor Big Anthony. "String him up," the men of the town shouted. "Now wait," said Strega-Nona. "The punishment must fit the crime." And she took a fork from a lady standing nearby and held it out to Big Anthony. "All right, Anthony, you wanted pasta from my magic pasta pot," Strega-Nona said. "And I want to sleep in my little bed tonight. So start eating." And he did. Poor Big Anthony. And then here's the last picture that I like very well. The end.
I love Strega-Nona.
I do too.
Thank you for reading that.
Yes.
Well, it's nearly summer, and it makes us think a bit about summer vacation. And I want to read Goldfish on Vacation. Words by Sally Lloyd-Jones, pictures by Leo Espinoza. Sometimes it's hard being a goldfish. You dream of growing fat and exploring coral reefs. But instead, here you are in a bowl, going round and round in circles. And sometimes it's hard being a child in the summer in the city. All your friends leave and there's no one to play with. You dream of escaping the steamy heat too, but instead, here you are in an apartment going round and round in circles. But sometimes, well, something happens to change all that. Goldfish on vacation. In a small apartment in a tall building by a park next to a river in the middle of the big city, there lived 3 children, H, little O, and baby M. In a small bowl next to a lamp in the middle of a table beside the curtains in the small apartment, there lived 3 goldfish, Barracuda, Patch, and Fiss. An old fountain stood at the end of their street. It was broken and covered in ivy. No one used it anymore except to throw garbage in, but the children thought it was beautiful. On top of the fountain there perched, as if it just landed or was about to fly off, a magnificent stone eagle with outstretched wings. Grandpa said, the same people who built the famous Grand Central Station built the fountain, and in the olden days before cars, horses were there to drink from it. But when people got cars, they didn't need horses or the fountain, and they stopped taking care of it. The children felt sad for the fountain and the eagle. Then one early summer day, a sign appeared. Hamilton Fountain Water Garden, coming in 2 weeks. Calling all goldfish, looking for a summer home. The children rushed home to tell their fish, "You're going on vacation." Barracuda stared with his big fish eyes. Fiss blew big fiss bubbles. And Perch sank slowly down to the bottom of the bowl. C.H. said, "They can't wait." Grandpa rushed into the kitchen, and on the big calendar on the wall next to June 28th, he wrote, "Goldfish on vacation." But the children didn't need a calendar to remember. They were already counting the days. Every morning they rushed to the window, and so did Grandpa. And every morning they watched a man at the fountain. One morning he was cleaning, the next morning he was scrubbing and scraping. Another morning he pulled ivy off the eagle and sprayed the fountain with clear, cold water. He put in tall reeds and then lily pads. And then one morning the children couldn't see him. They couldn't see him because of all the children. The children and children and children crowding were all around him, all of them waiting to drop off their little fish children. "It's today," cheered H, little O, and baby M, and it was. In no time they were making their way slowly down the big staircase and out the front door. Grandpa leading the way, then little O with her net, then baby M with the seafood, then H with the bowl, and Barracuda and Patch and Fiss in a wonderful goldfish parade. Out on the street, everywhere they looked, there were goldfish parents just like them with their goldfish. Then, when at last it was their turn at the fountain, H and baby M and little O told their fish goodbye and see you soon and don't be homesick. Then the man helped them lower the bowl under water. At first the fish hung back in the bowl until in a flash of light they darted and were gone. The water shone in the shadow of the eagle's wings, and the children saw, glistening in the sunlight, swimming in the clear, cool pool, the sudden glimpses of hidden treasure, fish after golden fish. All through the hot summer, H, little O, and baby M stopped by to say hello to their goldfish, and so did the other goldfish parents. Soon all the children looked forward to meeting each other at the fountain. Every day they played together, and every day Grandpa came and put his chair down and chatted with the children who sat and listened. And he told them stories of those hot August days long ago when he was a boy, and how all the children who couldn't leave the city would jump and splash in the fountain. And then the children wished that they were those children jumping in. Before they knew it, it was the end of the summer. The man told the goldfish parents that the only way to catch their fish was to go in the fountain, to wade into the water with their nets. And so all the children took off their sandals and jumped and splashed and laughed in the fountain. And then Grandpa took off his sandals too and rolled up his trousers and paddled. And he said it was like those days long ago when he was a boy. And the children could hardly even recognize their goldfish. They looked like completely different fish. Are they really our fish? Asked Little O as they headed home. Oh yes, I'm absolutely certain they're our fish, said Grandpa, who really wasn't at all certain they were. They look so fat and happy, said H. Of course, said Grandpa, that's what a vacation will do for you. Anyway, who says you have to leave the city to have a vacation? And the children laughed because they knew it was true. And so the goldfish, who may have been Barracuda and Patch and Fiss, or some other goldfish altogether, went back to being fish in a bowl. And the children went back to being children in school, until the next summer when Hamilton Fountain would once again be filled with the lily pads and reeds and shining water and golden fish. And children, many, many children. There's an author's note, which I would like to read. This is a true story that happened in New York City over the summers of 1992 to 2005. The fountain is on Riverside Drive and 76th Street. It is called Hamilton Fountain after Robert Ray Hamilton, who gave it to New York. And actually, he was the great-grandson of a very famous Hamilton, Alexander Hamilton, a founding father of the United States. And so it really is a fountain. It's a true story.
Goldfish on
Goldfish
vacation.
on vacation.
What a wonderful story.
Delightful.
I like that. And I have another of my favorites. It's called Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day by Judith Viorst. And this book is also very old. It was written in 1972. So it is very old. It is, oh, and look, this copy was signed by Judith Viorst to the children of Pocatello. Here we go. I went to sleep with gum in my mouth, and now there's gum in my hair. Ugh. And when I got out of bed this morning, I tripped on the skateboard by mistake, and I dropped my sweater in the sink while the water was running, and I could tell it was going to be a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. At breakfast, Anthony found a Corvette Stingray car kit in his breakfast cereal box, and Nick found a junior undercover agent code ring in his breakfast cereal box. But in my breakfast cereal box, all I found was breakfast cereal. I think I'll move to Australia. In the carpool, Mrs. Gibson let Becky have a seat by the window. Audrey and Elliot got seats by the window. I said I was being scrunched. I said I was being smushed. I said, if I don't get a seat by the window, I'm going to be car sick. No one even answered. I could tell it was going to be a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. At school, Mrs. Dickens liked Paul's picture of the sailboat better than my picture of the invisible castle. At singing time, she said I sang too loud. At counting time, she said I left out 16. Who needs 16? I could tell it was going to be a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. I could tell because Paul said I wasn't his best friend anymore. He said that Philip Parker was his best friend, and that Albert Moyle was his next best friend, and that I was only his third best friend. I hope you sit on a tack, I said to Paul. I hope the next time you get a double-decker strawberry ice cream cone, the ice cream part falls off the cone and lands in Australia. There were 2 cupcakes in Philip Parker's lunch bag, and Albert got a Hershey's bar with almonds, and Paul's mother gave him a piece of jelly roll that had little coconut sprinkles on the top. Guess whose mother forgot to put in dessert? It was a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. That's what it was, because after school my mom took us all to the dentist and Dr. Fields found a cavity just in me. "Come back next week and I'll fix it," said Dr. Fields. "Next week," I said. "I'm going to Australia." On the way downstairs, the elevator door closed on my foot, and while we were waiting for my mom to go get the car, Anthony made me fall where it was muddy. And then, when I started crying because of the mud, Nick said I was a crybaby, and while I was punching Nick for saying crybaby, my mom came back with the car and scolded me for being muddy and fighting. "I am having a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day," I told everybody. No one even answered. So then we went to the shoe store to buy some sneakers. Anthony chose white ones with blue stripes. Nick chose red ones with white stripes. I chose blue ones with red stripes, but then the shoe man said, "We're sold out. They made me buy old plain white ones, but they can't make me wear them." When we picked up my dad at his office, he said I couldn't play with his copying machine, but I forgot. He also said to watch out for the books on his desk, and I was careful as could be except for my elbow. He also said don't fool around with his phone, but I think I called Australia. My dad said, "Please don't pick him up anymore." It was a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. There were lima beans for dinner, and I hate limas. There was kissing on TV, and I hate kissing. My bath was too hot. I got soap in my eyes. My marble went down the drain, and I had to wear my railroad train pajamas. I hate my railroad train pajamas. When I went to bed, Nick took back the pillow he said I could keep, and the Mickey Mouse nightlight burned out, and I bit my tongue. The cat wants to sleep with Anthony, not with me. It has been a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. My mom says some days are like that. Even in Australia. The end.
So funny. Once my kids called Nigeria.
Did they
back
really?
in the days when you used to get a phone bill, and you could see.
And they called
Nigeria.
Oh no. Was it expensive?
A bit. Yeah, that's how I noticed something was wrong.
Oh no.
And here we have a beautiful story written and illustrated by two ladies who live in Paris.
Very nice.
And it is called When a Wolf is Hungry. Christine Naumann-Villiam is the author, and the illustrator is Christy Giacomo. When a Wolf is Hungry. One Sunday morning, Edmund Big Snout, lone wolf, left his home in the woods with a great big knife in his paw. Edmund had a hankering for some rabbit. Not just any ordinary cottontail, though. What he craved was a grain-fed, silky-haired rabbit, one with just a hint of sweetness, a city bunny. He lopped and hopped on his bike and headed for the city, determined to find one. He stopped in front of a tall apartment building. He checked the names next to the buzzers and found exactly what he was looking for. Max Amatos, miniature rabbit, 5th floor. Oh, Edmund was so happy with the point of his knife. He pressed the button for the elevator. Ding! Inside the elevator, he set down the knife and adjusted his bow tie. Just because a wolf is hungry doesn't mean he can't be fashionable. But of course, he forgot his knife in the elevator. Ding! The turkey from the 3rd floor was on her way home from the bakery. Oh, a knife. That's just what I need to cut this cake. On the 5th floor, the wolf realized his mistake. He pressed the button again, but no knife. It doesn't matter, thought Edmund. I'll pedal home, lickety-split, and get my chainsaw. Sliced rabbit is delicious, too. In no time at all, Edmund was back. Ding! The bear from the 4th floor. Good day, sir. Are you our new neighbor? No, I mean yes, said the wolf, lying through his teeth. Welcome to the building. My, that's a nice chainsaw you have there. What did you need it for? To slice to trim my... Would you mind terribly if I borrowed it until this evening? I have a hedge to trim on the roof. Not at all. Arrgh, how annoying. Edmund got out of the elevator on the ground floor. Rope. I need a rope, he thought, to tie up that rabbit and eat him in peace. The wolf pedaled back, but he was getting hungrier and hungrier. All this biking certainly worked up an appetite. Ding! There in the elevator was a skunk. His hands were quite full. Hello, are you the new neighbor? Yes, yes, grumbled Edmund. Delighted to meet you. Oh, look, you have some rope. Any chance I could have it? This great big package is such a nuisance. Drat. I suppose so, sighed the wolf. The skunk was so pleased that he let out a little air. Edmund decided to take the stairs back down. The elevator had gotten a bit too smelly. Oh well, never mind. The wolf rushed home to get his big pot. He would just throw the rabbit in and eat him whole. No more messing around. The wolf was all out of breath by the time he got back. A large cow was waiting in the elevator. For the elevator. Oh, hello, Mr. Edmund Big Snout. A new neighbor. How delightful. And what a lovely pot. It is, isn't it? Tell me, neighbor, would it be too forward of me to ask to borrow it? Well, I sort of need it. What a shame. My husband will be terribly upset, but no matter. You'll explain it to him yourself, won't you? Never mind. Just take it. Drat, 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 rats. All right, it's barbecue time, thought Edmund. I'm going to grill that rabbit just as he is, ears and tail and all. So Edmund went home, tied a trailer to his bike, and pedaled as fast as he could back to the city. Ding! Right there in front of him was Miss Eyestopper, who had a box of matches in her paw. Oh, how fancy. Do you live here with your parents? No, all by myself, stammered Edmund. How interesting, said the lovely young wolf. Oh, is that a grill? Just what I was looking for. Thank you, Mr. Wolf. You are too kind. I do hope I'll be seeing you sometime. Arrgh, enough is enough. I'm going to eat him now with a little mustard, and that's it. Edmund made it up to the 5th floor without meeting anyone. Phew! A note was taped to the rabbit's door. I'm on the roof, Max. To the roof I go, my little rabbit, to eat you at last. Our new neighbor, please join us. Come on over here, dear friend. Oh, you've even brought mustard. How neighborly of you. Don't be shy. We won't eat you. And the sign on the tree says, Edmund Big Snout, lone, oh, scratch that out, vegetarian wolf, has moved to the city. House for sale. Mr. Edmund Big Snout, vegetarian wolf, president of the Good Neighbor Association. Famished, oh, scratch that, finished. The end.
Very
Salt
nice.
and pepper.
Oh, very good. And this one is a new book also. This is called The Lumberjack's Beard. And it's by Duncan Beattie. Look at all those stumps. The Lumberjack's Beard. Big Jim Hickory was a lumberjack. He lived by the forest in a little log cabin. He had burly shoulders and a big bristly beard. Every morning he did limbering up exercises. It's very important to limber up if you're a lumberjack. After a hearty breakfast of pancakes and maple syrup, Jim slung his trusty axe over his burly shoulders and headed out into the forest. Chop, choppity chop went Jim's axe. Timber! Echoing through the valley as he felled tree after tree after tree. After a long day of swinging, whacking, cleaving, and hacking, Jim headed back to his cabin. That evening, when he was just about to go to bed, he heard a peck, peckety-peck at the door. Jim looked down to see a small and very angry bird. "I had just built a new nest in my tree," shrieked the bird, "and you chopped it down." Jim scratched his chin. Then he had an idea. "I suppose you could move into my beard," he said. "Very well then," said the bird, and in it flew. The next morning, Jim woke up earlier than usual due to the birds chirping at the crack of dawn. He did his limbering up exercises, got dressed, and ate his breakfast with a little help from the new tenant in his beard. Jim's next job was to strip the branches and leaves from the tree trunks and burn them in a big bonfire. After a long day of chopping, snapping, burning, and crackling, Jim trudged back to his cabin for a well-earned rest. No sooner had he put his axe away than he heard a noise at the door. Scratch, scratchety, scratch. He looked down to see a very angry porcupine. "I needed those leaves and pine needles to make a cozy shelter, but you burned them. Where am I going to live now?" snapped the porcupine. Jim thought and scratched his chin. "Well," he said, "I suppose you could move into my beard." He bent down and the porcupine crawled in. The next morning, Jim woke up even earlier and attempted to do his limbering up exercises. He looked in the mirror and scratched his chin. Yow! He got porcupine quills in his fingers. He tried to eat his breakfast, but lost his appetite when he noticed bird poop on his shirt. Jim's job that day was to float all the tree trunks down the river to the lumberyard. One by one, he rolled the logs into the fast-flowing water. After a hard day of lugging, splashing, rolling, and crashing, Jim staggered back to his cabin. Thwump, thwumpity thwump went his door. He looked down to see a very angry beaver at his doorstep. "I spent all day building my dam and it got smashed to bits by those logs you threw in the river," it snarled. Without a word, Jim picked up the beaver and put it in his beard. Between the birds chirping, the porcupines prickling, and the beavers thwumping, Jim didn't get much sleep that night. He was too tired to do his limbering up exercises in the morning, and the beaver's thwumping tail knocked his pancakes all over the floor. "That's it," cried Jim. "I can't take it anymore. You'll all have to move out today." "But where will we live?" cried the animals. As Jim scratched his chin, he had a brilliant idea. He went into his bathroom, took out a razor, and began to shave off his big, bristly beard. Then he took the hair and piled it up on his porch, and the bird, the porcupine, and the beaver all moved into their big, bristly new den. That night, Jim slept better than he had for some time. He woke up and did some particularly vigorous limbering up exercises and put on a fresh plaid shirt. Then he made an enormous tower of pancakes and maple syrup. Jim looked out the window at the bare ground where the forest used to be, and he scratched his now stubbly chin. Then he had another brilliant idea. Jim took his shovel and dug hole after hole after hole, and planted tree after tree after tree. Jim's beard grew back over time. The trees took quite a bit longer, but it was worth the wait. The end.
Oh, yay. I love that.
I do too.
And I am going to read an alphabet book. It's actually an alphabetical smorgasbord. It's by Mo Willems, a very beloved children's writer, and it's called A Busy Creature's Day Eating. Do not try this at home. A, B, C, D, a busy creature's day eating. A, apples. B, berries. Nom, 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 nom. C, cereal. Crunch, 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 crunch. D, donuts. E, eggs. Oh, wonk, 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 wonk. Ah. F, furniture. Chomp, 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 chomp. G, gravy. H, huge hot sauce halibut hoagie. I, ice cream. J, jacket. K, kilt. Crunch, crunch. L, lunchbox. M, mayonnaise. N, napkin. Oh, oh, the pain. P, potty. Q, queasy. R, rice. S, saltines. T, tea. U, V, vomit. W, water. X, XOXOXO, love and kisses. Y, yawn. Z, zonked. The end. And there you are.
Oh, that's a great story. Very
That's
nice.
fun.
Very fun. And here is another favorite of mine, Rockaboxen.
Oh.
Roxaboxen by Alice McLaren and illustrated by Barbara Cooney. Marion called it Roxaboxen. She always knew the name of everything. There across the road it looked like any rocky hill. Nothing but sand and rocks, some old wooden boxes, cactus and greasewood and thorny osatillo. But it was a special place. The street between Roxaboxen and the houses curved like a river, so Marion named it the River Road. After that, you had to ford the river to reach Roxaboxen. Of course, all of Marion's sisters came. Anna May and Frances and little Jean. Charles from next door, and even though he was 12, oh, and Eleanor, naturally, and Jamie with his brother Paul. Later on, there were others, but those were the first. Well, not really the first. Roxaboxen had always been there, and must have belonged to others long before. When Marion dug up a box filled with round black pebbles, everyone knew what it was. It was buried treasure. Those pebbles were the money of Roxaboxen. You could still find others like them if you looked hard enough. So some days became treasure hunting days with everybody trying to find that special kind. And then on other days you might just find one without even looking. A town of Roxaboxen began to grow, traced in lines of stone. Main Street first, edged with the whitest ones, and then the houses. Charles made his out of the biggest stones. After all, he was the oldest. At first, the houses were very plain, but soon they all began to add more rooms. The old wooden boxes could be shelves or tables or anything you wanted. You could find pieces of pottery for dishes, Round pieces were best. Later on, there was a town hall. Marion was the mayor, of course. That was just the way she was. Nobody minded. After a while, they added other streets. Frances moved to one of them and built herself a new house, outlined in desert glass. Bits of amber, amethyst, and sea green. A house of jewels. And because everybody had plenty of money, there were plenty of shops. Jean helped Anna May in the bakery. Pies and cakes and bread baked warm in the sun. There were 2 ice cream parlors. Was Paul's ice cream the best or Eleanor's? Everybody kept trying them both. In Roxaboxen, you can eat all the ice cream you want. Everybody had a car. All you needed was something round for a steering wheel. Of course, if you broke the speed limit, you had to go to jail. The jail had cactus on the floor to make it uncomfortable. And Jamie was the policeman. Anna May, quiet little Anna May, was always speeding. You'd think she liked to go to jail. But if you had a horse, you could go as fast as the wind. There were no speed limits for horses, and you didn't have to stay on the road. All you needed for a horse was a stick and some kind of bridle, and you could gallop anywhere. Sometimes there were wars. Once there was a great war, boys against girls. Charles and Marion were the generals. The girls had Fort Irene, and they were all Girl Scouts. The boys made a fort at the other end of the Roxaboxen, and they were all bandits. Oh, the raids were fierce, loud with whooping and stamping of horses. The whirling swords of Ossatio had sharp thorns, but when you reached your fort, you were safe. Roxaboxen had a cemetery in case anyone died, but the only grave in it was for a dead lizard. Each year, when the cactus bloomed, they decorated the grave with flowers. Sometimes in winter, when everybody was at school and the weather was bad, no one went to Roxaboxen at all, not for weeks and weeks. But it didn't matter. Roxaboxen was always waiting. Roxaboxen was always there, and spring came, and the Ossatio blossomed, and everybody sucked the honey from its flowers, and everybody built new rooms, and everybody decided to have jeweled windows. That summer there were 3 new houses on the east slope and 2 new shops on Main Street. And so it went. The seasons changed and the years went by. Roxaboxen was always there. The years went by and the seasons changed until at last the friends had all grown tall, and one by one they moved away to other houses, to other towns. So you might think that was the end of Roxaboxen, but oh no, because none of them ever forgot Roxaboxen. Not one of them ever forgot. Years later, Marion's children listened to stories of that place and fell asleep dreaming dreams of Roxaboxen. Gray-haired Charles picked up a black pebble on the beach and stood holding it, remembering Roxaboxen. More than 50 years later, Frances went back and Roxaboxen was still there. She could see the white stones bordering Main Street, and there, where she had built her houses, the desert glass still glowed, amethyst, amber, and sea green. The end.
That's one of my favorites.
Mine too.
Here is the book of the month for May at Storytime in the Marshall Library. It's called I Am a Cat, and it is by Gayla Bernstein. I am a cat. Hello, my name is Simon. I am a cat, just like you. What? A cat, said Lion. Don't be silly, dear boy. You can't be a cat because I am a cat, and you are nothing like me at all. Cats have a mane and a tuft at the end of their tails, and when they roar, everybody trembles, for they are the king of all beasts. A cat, said Cheetah, but you are so short and chubby. Cats are tall and graceful creatures who run faster than all the animals in the world. You don't look like you can run very fast at all. A cat, said Puma? That's ridiculous. Cats live in the mountains. That's why people call us mountain lions. They leap far, they jump high, and they act tough. I know fuzzy little rabbits that look tougher than you. A cat? Cats are black, said Panther. They live in jungles and rainforests and sleep in trees. Have you ever even seen a jungle? A cat, said Tiger. That's very funny. You see, cats are very big and very strong and very, very orange. You are small and gray. You might be some kind of rat, but a cat? I don't think so. Simon was confused. Lion is the only one with the mane, he said. No one else is black like Panther or orange like Tiger. No one else can jump as high as Puma or can run as fast as Cheetah. So how can you all be cats? Because we also have many things in common, said Lion. We all have small perky ears and flat noses, long whiskers and long tails. We have sharp teeth and claws. And big eyes that see in the dark. So do I, said Simon. I have all of those things, only smaller. They all leaned in to have a closer look. Ah, said Lion. Oh, said Puma. In that case, said Panther, it's very possible that, said Tiger. You're a cat, said Cheetah. So, I'm part of the family? Asked Simon. The big cats looked at one another. Yes, they all said together. And they spent the rest of the day pouncing and prowling, prancing and playing like cats of all sizes do. And after that, a big cat nap. The end.
Very nice. Well, I read the story about the lumberjack and his beard, and this one is called The Wild Washerwomen.
Yay!
And I love this book. It's illustrated by Quentin Blake and written by John Yeoman. And I love this story. There's also some lumberjacks in here. Once upon a time, there were 7 washerwomen. Every day they went down to the river with their baskets of washing on their heads. Their names were Dotty, Lottie, Molly, Dolly, Winnie, Minnie, and Ernestine, and they were all good friends. When they got to the river, they sorted out the clothes and plunged them in. They soaked them. They soaped them. They pounded them on the stones. They rinsed them. They wrung them. And they spread them over bushes and rocks to dry. They were the best washerwomen for miles, but they were not happy. The owner of the laundry, Mr. Balthazar Tight, was a very mean little man and kept them working from morning to night. Every morning at the crack of dawn, they had to get up and do the ironing before the day's washing arrived, and when it did arrive in the goat cart, Perkin the delivery boy would say, "I'm sorry, lady, but it's more than ever today." One morning, as the washerwomen stared glumly at the mountain of dirty laundry, They felt that it was really too much. They all sighed as they looked at the filthy sheets, grubby hankies, horrid socks, grimy nightshirts, messy tablecloths, and ghastly towels. "Why don't we just leave it?" suggested Ernestine timidly. Their faces brightened up immediately. "What a marvelous idea!" chuckled Dolly, flinging a grimy shirt across the room. "Why didn't we think of it before?" chortled Winnie. And at that they began to dance. The door burst open and Mr. Balthazar Tight stepped in with Perkin. "Not now, ladies," he said with a frown. "There's work to be done." Then he looked at the great mound of laundry on the floor. "Wonderful," he said. "There's more than ever." This made Minnie so angry that she shouted, "Let him have it, girls!" And the 7 washerwomen pushed the mountain of laundry until it collapsed on top of Mr. Balthazar Tight. While he was struggling to get free, the 7 washerwomen raced out of the laundry and into the yard. They piled into the empty goat cart, and Dotty grabbed the reins. "Gee up, Lysander," she cried to the goat. The washerwomen were so excited by their escape that they drove the cart right through the town, right into the town pond, splashing the clean clothes of the passers-by with muddy water. After that, there was no stopping them. They rode to the marketplace, where they overturned the stalls and set the animals loose. They stopped in orchards and climbed the trees to help themselves to the farmers' fruit. They raced through the hat shops and snatched the hats. They ran into churches and alarmed the local people by swinging on the bell ropes and making a terrible noise. The washerwomen were having so much fun that they didn't want it to end, so day after day they went on the rampage, and all that washing had made the washerwomen very strong. The people who tried to stop them didn't have a chance. Everyone was terrified of them. Each village built a watchtower so that the villagers could shout, "Look out! The wild washerwomen are coming!" when their goat cart came into sight. In a hut in the forest lived 7 woodcutters. They chopped down trees and floated them down the river to the town. When they heard that the 7 washerwomen were coming, they just laughed. "We'll see who's afraid," they said. "We'll prepare a surprise for them." The woodcutters decided to make themselves as ugly and frightening as possible. They tangled their hair and matted their beards. They smeared mud and soot over their hands and faces and clothes, and they practiced making blood-curdling cries. Soon the 7 washerwomen came rattling up the mountain path in their goat cart. As they turned a corner, there in front of them was a terrifying sight. Lysander stopped in his tracks, and even the wild washerwomen were about to run away. But then Minnie realized that they were looking at the dirtiest and grubbiest things that they had ever seen in their lives. "Come on, girls," she shouted. "Remember, you're washerwomen." They leapt out of the cart and grabbed hold of the woodcutters. They plunged them in the river. They soaked them and squeezed them and pounded them on the stones. They rinsed them and wrung them out and laid them out to dry. By the time they had finished, the woodcutters had never looked so clean and shining, and the washerwomen felt quite proud of their work. In fact, now they could see the woodcutters without their soot and mud. They really rather liked the look of them. The washerwomen never went back to work for Mr. Balthazar Tight. They married the woodcutters, who built them some new log huts to live in. And after that, people who had traveled along the mountain path would see them all happily washing and woodcutting and having the time of their lives. The end. The wild washerwomen. I like that.
Reminds me of Roald Dahl.
I
so
like
very
that
much.
so well.
It's a good one. Well, we have not
Would you
much
like to
time
read
left.
Click Clack Moo?
I would.
I think that you
think
do
we can
a
do it
good
in
job.
time?
I think so.
All right. Click, Clack, Moo, Cows That Type by Doreen Cronin and pictures by Betsy Lewin. Farmer Brown has a problem. His cows like to type. All day long he hears click, clack, moo, click, clack, moo, clackety, clack, moo. At first he couldn't believe his ears. Cows that type? Impossible. Click, clack, moo, click, clack, moo, clickety, clack, moo. Then he couldn't believe his eyes. Dear Farmer Brown, the barn is very cold at night. Would like some electric blankets. Sincerely, the cows. It was bad enough the cows found the old typewriter in the barn. Now they wanted electric blankets. No way, said Farmer Brown. No electric blankets. So the cows went on strike. They left a note on the barn door. Sorry, we're closed. No milk today. No milk today, cried Farmer Brown. In the background, he heard the cows busy at work. Click, clack, moo, click, clack, moo, clackety, clack, moo. The next day he got another note. Dear Farmer Brown, the hens are cold too. The hens would like electric blankets. Sincerely, the cows. The cows were growing impatient with the farmer. They left a new note on the barn door. Closed. No milk, no eggs. No eggs, cried Farmer Brown. In the background he heard them. Click, clack, moo, click, clack, moo, clickety, clack, moo. Cows that type, hens on strike. Whoever heard of such a thing? How can I run a farm with no milk and no eggs? Farmer Brown was furious. He got out his own typewriter. Dear cows and hens, there will be no electric blankets. You are cows and hens. I demand milk and eggs. Sincerely, Farmer Brown. Duck was a neutral party, so he brought the cows the ultimatum and brought them to the barn. The cows held an emergency meeting. All the animals gathered around the barn to snoop, but none of them could understand moo. All night long, Farmer Brown waited for an answer. Duck knocked on the door early the next morning. He handed Farmer Brown a note. Dear Farmer Brown, we'll be exchanging our typewriter for electric blankets. Leave them outside the barn door, and we will send Duck over with the typewriter. Sincerely, the cows. Farmer Brown decided this was a good deal. He left the blankets next to the barn door and waited for Duck to come with the typewriter. The next morning he got a note. Dear Farmer Brown, the pond is quite boring. Would like a diving board. Sincerely, the ducks. Click, clack, quack. Click, clack, quack. Click, clack, quack. Splash. Off the diving board.
Very good.
The end.
And thank you so much for listening. See you next time. Bye-bye.